Does every problem have a solution? The Flash does its best to find out, zooming all over the multiverse, meeting several surprising faces, facing some harsh realities, and ushering what's next for DC Comics movies. Directed by Andy Muschietti, the 13th and penultimate film of what we now know as the DCEU rewrites reality for all of your favorite DC characters in a way that you will probably love, but also might kind of hate. And we'll break all of that down, plus the rules of time travel are pretty tricky in this one, so we're going to describe how it all works and what it all means for the future of DC. Grab whatever super suit materials you can find and run with me here.
Oh my God! Flash!
Hi.
I love you!
But before we do all that, spoilers, big ones. We are not holding back on this, so if you haven't seen The Flash yet or you just don't want to know, now would be a time to run away really fast while we get into this, but don't run so fast you time travel and see some on accident.
Barry, what are you doing? Our kids are gonna want to see this.
Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, let's break down how time travel works in this movie. If we're gonna explain the ending, you're gonna need to know all of this, and more of this is dependent on spaghetti than usual. Did the DC movie universe get reset? Yes, and I'll get to that, but this is important to make that make sense, so stick with me here, okay? In The Flash, Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne illustrates the rules of time travel using a bowl of pasta as a visual aid. Basically, reality exists as a mass of different strands of time, or noodles, if you will, all flowing alongside each other, sometimes crossing over and intersecting. With so many strands flowing in and out of one another, it's also almost impossible to know where one timeline begins and another one ends. And that's why Barry's trip back in time is so dangerous. He's messing with forces he can't fully comprehend.
Time travel!
Let's backtrack pre-Keaton for a second. In the present day, Barry feels 3 lives were ruined when his mother was stabbed to death after his father left the house to buy a forgotten can of tomatoes for a pasta meal from the grocery store. This resulted in his father being falsely convicted as the murderer. He's imprisoned and waiting on an appeal, with the court meeting the next day. Barry's dad's alibi rests on security footage where his face can't clearly be seen and is sure to fail in his trial. After running as fast as possible in upset frustration, Barry discovers he can run backwards in time, visually represented by past moments shown in not great CGI in the Chrono Bowl. Barry, despite hearing the dangers of time meddling from his buddy, Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne, decides to go back and make his mom never forget the tomatoes from the store, thus ensuring the murder never happens. Simple, right? Again, not so much. Barry gets punched by Dark Flash, who suddenly and unexpectedly appears on his way back to the present. His new temporal landing place in a timeline where his mother was never murdered is approximately the same time as when Superman first appears in Man of Steel, when yes, General Zod shows up and wants to destroy the Earth, trying to forge a second chance for Krypton. And unfortunately, while Superman quickly popped up to face Zod in the timeline we're familiar with, he's not here now, and our Barry has to deal with a dopey Ted Theodore Logan-esque 18-year-old version of himself. Luckily, he also has Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne on his side, at his current age, because time is not linear in this explanation, a seemingly retired Batman complete with Tim Burton-era Batmobile and accoutrement, and the iconic Danny Elfman score. The movie makes it clear that time travel doesn't have a linear effect on the timeline, meaning a time traveler doesn't simply create a branching timeline when they change a historical event, like how the MCU might explain it. Instead, their actions reverberate forward and backward across time, causing rippling changes in both directions, past and future.
So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit?
That's why Barry's trip back to his childhood in 2001 caused changes extending back even further, like having Keaton's Batman in this world instead of Affleck, and causing Kara Zor-El to crash land on Earth instead of her famous cousin, Kal-El. In this world, Keaton is the Batman.
I'm Batman.
Kal-El died as an infant, and Kara's Kryptonian escape pod landed on Earth in his place. Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Aquaman are MIA. Move one pasta noodle in the bowl and all the other noodles twist and warp alongside it. All parts of the noodle, all parts of time. The Flash's use of time travel also hinges heavily on the concept of fixed points in time, events that happen the same way in all timelines and can't easily be altered. Not to mix universes, but these are basically Nexus events or canon events in other superhero multiverses. Anyway, Barry becoming the Flash is one of these fixed points. A Kryptonian coming to Earth is another fixed point. Bruce Wayne's parents being murdered is a fixed point. Even though Barry altered time, these key events all still happened, just a little differently than they do in the original timeline we all know by now. One concept the movie perhaps doesn't convey as clearly as maybe it should have is the idea that alternate universes and alternate timelines are not the same things. The DC universe exists as a bunch of possible timelines, each created when a key event happened differently and one noodle became two. The comics refer to this bundle of timelines and possibilities as hypertime. But the multiverse is something different. The worlds of the DC multiverse don't exist as a jumbled mess of pasta noodles, but as a more orderly structure where each version of Earth vibrates at a different harmonic frequency. Timelines can sometimes be radically different from one another, but ultimately they're bound by the same basic rules and series of events. There is no limit to how different alternate universes can be from one another. They might have alternate versions of characters like Flash, Batman, and Superman, or those characters may not exist at all. Barry doesn't actually travel to another universe in The Flash. He sees other universes in the climax when he races through the Chrono Bowl and catches glimpses of Christopher Reeve's Superman, George Reeves' Superman, Adam West's Batman, Teddy Sears J. Garrick, Golden Age Flash, and one Nicolas Coppola Cage Superman versus a giant spider. The implication being every film version of these heroes did happen, but in different universes, separate and distinct from Barry's own. He creates a different timeline when he races back in time and switches in the can of tomatoes, one that draws in fragments of other timelines and distorts into something new. And he eliminates that timeline when he goes back and fixes his mistake, though the ending makes it clear Barry hasn't fully restored his original timeline. Let's get into that.
It's my face. You stole my face.
In the climax of The Flash, the two Barrys hit a major roadblock when they discover that Batman and Supergirl's deaths are another fixed point in time. No matter how fast he runs, Barry can't stop his new friends from being brutally killed during Zod's attack. Unfortunately, Kara and Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne seem destined to die here no matter what. That truth is what ultimately drives past Barry insane as he spends decades in the Speed Force trying to prevent the inevitable and morphs into the Dark Flash, aged and covered in pieces of shrapnel picked up from various attempts to right the battle. This is what prompts present Barry to finally accept that some things can't be changed and that he needs to undo his time meddling. He restores the DCEU to how it previously existed, give or take one Bruce Wayne, but we never actually see Supergirl or Batman, Keaton's Batman, after that point. The film doesn't definitively reveal what happened to these characters after the timeline was fixed. Okay, quick break. When we come back, I'll break down that ending and the mid-credits scene. Stick around.
Wait, he's Batman?
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
Now, let's get to the emotional final moments of the movie and what the last scene actually means for everything, and I do mean everything, going forward. Barry comes to understand that his mother's death is a fixed point in time, and by changing it, he creates the past Barry who would go on to become Dark Flash. To undo his own paradox, he must allow his mother to die. He goes back to the past again, just after he originally slipped the tomato can into her cart, and pulls it back out, but not before sharing one final emotional moment with his mother, knowing he is sending her to her sudden and painful doom. Yeah, it's kind of heavy.
Oh, this is heavy.
He does change one thing though. He moves all the tomato cans to a shelf where, when his father goes to grab one, his face will be seen by the security camera, thus exonerating him of the murder in the current timeline. Barry walks out of his father's successful retrial and talks on the phone to Bruce, who's congratulating him and just happens to be pulling up in his very fancy car. And then we see Bruce, now played by George Clooney instead of Ben Affleck. Uh-oh, oh no, oh crap, Barry, butterfly affected his world again, and now he's stuck with, hands down, the worst Batman.
This is why Superman works alone.
So, where is Barry now? What else is different? The mid-credits scene isn't super helpful in unraveling this any further. The mid-credits scene shows that at least Jason Momoa's Aquaman / Arthur Curry is more or less the same. Barry has presumably explained the multiverse to him, and Arthur has presumably gotten stinking drunk to make his technobabble palatable. Barry tries to get drunk-ass Aquaman up to sleep in his apartment in Central City, but Aquaman is much happier in a filthy puddle in the street. This scene serves as a reminder. Changing points in time can shift some things wildly and some things not at all. Aquaman didn't change. And that's it. There's nothing after the credits, but let's get back to what I find most interesting. The ending perfectly carves an opening for James Gunn's creative reboot of the DC Cinematic Universe. So as we leave the last moments of the film proper in a moment that made my theater literally scream, George Clooney is Bruce Wayne, not Ben Affleck. That means that Barry is not actually in the same exact point where he started this movie. He's in a slightly divergent timeline. Does this imply the Batman and Robin movie timeline is essentially where he landed with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze?
Let's kick some ice.
What about Alicia Silverstone's Batgirl? Is she maybe Oracle now? Chris O'Donnell's Robin, but probably in the Nightwing stages of his life? Could Bat Skates, Bat Nips, Bat Credit Cards, and Uma Thurman's over-the-top acting still exist here?
Please, show some mercy.
Getting over all of that, which took me some time, the bigger implication here is they absolutely have the space to either shift or redefine the main DC cinematic timeline thanks to Flash's Flashpoint-esque meddling. The movie universe reset will make perfect sense, moving away from what is essentially the Snyderverse over to James Gunn's new vision, explained away by the various timeline meddling points in this movie. We could easily still be in the same universe as before, but with this Barry's meddling, see a different Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, everyone at any point in their lives because of what Barry shifted with the whole tomato can debacle. The Barry we've been following is essentially not where he started, also leaving room to even recast Ezra Miller. If many different actors playing Batman and Superman can all exist and make sense in one context, why not Flash 2? The Flash movie literally makes any version possible going forward. They can easily recast everyone, leave one or two actors in place, shift how old everyone is, shift the circumstances of the world. The door is wide open for anything to make sense in the upcoming Superman Legacy. But what did you think of The Flash? Will Ezra Miller's Barry return? Is there a chance Michael Keaton's Batman and Kara Zor-El could pop up again? And what will they remember? Also, you interested in some leftover pasta? This is like my third bowl. I made way too much. Let me know down in the comments, and thanks for watching this episode of Canon Fodder. I'm Kim Horcher, and for more Flash, check out our full review, and don't forget to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.